good. All right, and with that, this meeting has started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of North Kawartha Council. Welcome to the folks that are joining us live in the studio today, and welcome to the folks that are joining us online. I want to remind everybody that our meetings are recorded and they are uploaded to our YouTube channel, and that's so folks that don't have the ability to attend either virtually or in person during the actual meeting have the ability to see their local government in action at a later date and time. So I just want to make everybody aware that any comments, any opinions that are expressed will be recorded and available for public members to hear, okay? And before we get into the business, Council would like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, in particular our neighbors from Kawartha Anishinaabe and Curve Lake First Nation. We recognize and honor the original people of this place we call North Kawartha. As duly elected representatives, we follow this Indigenous practice of acknowledgement to foster respectful deliberation, thoughtful collaboration, and wise decision-making in our service to this community. And with that, I totally forgot my rule of putting on the mic. The air conditioner is going to be running probably nonstop today because everybody knows how hot it is out there. So I want to encourage everyone at the council table here to use your mics so folks can hear, not only the ones that are here, but the ones that are online as well. So, okay, and then I would like to ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest with any of the matters coming before us. I do have one with respect to the housekeeping bylaw amendment, the portion regarding docks. I am declaring an interest with that because I am married to a dock builder. So I will remove myself from the chamber when that discussion takes place, and then the deputy mayor will take over, okay? And with that, adoption of the agenda, have there been any additions or anything, Kelly? I don't think there's been any changes, has there? No. Okay, all right, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please, for today? Moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Colin, all those in favor? The agenda has been adopted, and I will declare that we are going into a statutory public hearing for the purpose of hearing several different amendments and applications. Public hearing is an opportunity for folks to ask for planning relief from the rules and regulations that guide planning in our community. It's also an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments on those requests. And it is important to note, we want everyone to express their comments and give the information and the feedback so we can make the best decision possible. But there have been changes to the Planning Act that have removed the right of public appeal for the general public. Only specified persons, the applicant, certain agencies have that ability and have that right. And for those folks, there is a 20-day appeal period, and that begins the day the decision is posted. So I think I've covered everything. I'm going to invite our planner, Ford Simon, to come forward and deal with the first item on our hearing list today, and that is the County Official Plan Amendment and Zone Amendment for Challenger. So while Forbes is getting set up, I did want to just speak to a couple of roles, just one thing in particular. It's not necessarily related with planning, but it's important, I think, that I acknowledge it publicly. And it's regarding some public comments in regards to Chris Challenger and his previous employment as North Kawartha's Economic Development Officer. So when the Challenger development proposal came forward, Chris immediately declared a conflict of interest to his supervisor, Clerk Connie Parent. Building and planning staff were very much aware that Chris had a conflict of interest and did not discuss anything with him regarding his family's property or this development proposal. Staff always dealt directly with Eric Challenger and with his wife. So the idea or the suggestion that Chris used his position to influence this matter is entirely unfounded, and it's without merit. Township staff, including Chris when he was employed here, they're all professionals, and they undertake their duties with integrity and with ethics. So thank you for that, and turning it over to you, Forbes.
Thank you very much, Mayor. It's a pleasure to be before you and your council again today. I've provided council with a very detailed planning report that has a recommendation for council's consideration on the official plan amendment and the zoning amendment that is before you. And it goes, it's worth being said that it's also acknowledged that there is a concurrent plan of subdivision application that's being processed by Peterborough County that council will be asked to provide comment on at a future date. But today, you're being asked to consider both the official plan amendment and the zoning amendment that facilitate the subdivision application. And I ask that we stay sort of focused on that. It's hard not to involve the subdivision, but in terms of the decisions being asked today, they are related to the OPA and zoning. I'm not going to go through my report verbatim, but there are a few things that I think that are important to highlight for council as we're going through the process. So the official plan amendment itself is proposing to expand the boundary of the hamlet of Woodview. And this is an established rural settlement area in the south end of the township that's had certain amount of commercial growth. There's some institutional amenities within the community. And the proposal is to take the existing golf course that is located at the southeastern edge of the hamlet, partially within the hamlet, partially within the rural area, and to place the lands entirely within the hamlet designation. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a second. The zoning amendment is to place the vast majority of the same lands within the general residential zoning that would permit the proposed 59 lot plan of subdivision. There are some components of it that recognize environmental features. There's also a couple of zones that would recognize amenities such as the stormwater management pond. Would not go into a residential zone, it would go into an open space zone. And then finally, the zoning has one block that's identified for commercial uses, and that's the block that generally surrounds the golf course clubhouse right now. And it would support a wide range of neighborhood commercial type activities that would support the broader community. As way of background, the applicant, Mr. Challenger, did retain the services of EcoView Consulting Services. I believe Mr. Randall is here today, and they prepared a full suite of planning reports, engineering reports, impact assessment reports that are typical of a plan of subdivision application. So an archaeological assessment, an environmental impact assessment, a traffic assessment. They've done geotechnical analysis, and they've also done stormwater management assessments. And these are all very typical of a rural subdivision that would be done. It is also typical that these studies, once submitted, go through a peer review process. So these are another set of engineers or professionals retained by the approval authority to take a look at these studies to make sure that their methodologies were correct, their conclusions were well-founded and justified, and that all the I's and T's are dotted in those reports. And so the traffic impact assessment and the environmental impact studies were both peer-reviewed. The archaeological assessment typically don't get peer-reviewed, but get looked at very closely by our First Nation neighbors. And then as part of my role, retained by the township, I've critiqued the planning justification report and other elements of the subdivision, or the application. One of the important elements of any planning application is ensuring that it's consistent with various planning documents and that we all have to have regard for and be concerned about. The applicant's planning justification report did a very thorough critique of Section 51 of the Planning Act, which is a plan of subdivision shall include a full series of elements that get looked at, everything from public interest to conformity with local plans to suitability of lands and roadways and lot configurations, assessment of natural features, etc. I don't have anything to add to their report, and I think it should be accepted at face value in that respect. They also did a complete assessment of the provincial planning statement, the 2024 planning statement. It's important for council to appreciate that the PPS is very clear that in a rural community such as ours, that growth should be directed towards rural settlement communities, but they have to demonstrate that it can be supported on private services. That's the issue. You should be directing growth to these urban communities. This is how we build rural economies and rural communities, as opposed to scattered development through the consent process. They prefer development going to the urban centers, but we have to be sensitive to the fact that they're on well and septic system and not municipal services. Again, I think that the planning justification report was very well written with regards to the PPS, and it's accepted as written as well. The Peterborough County official plan is the third document that needs to be considered with this application. And this application is not just the upper tier official plan, it also functions as your official plan as well. So it has both upper tier functions as well as local planning functions. And the amendment that's being made to the official plan is, the approval authority is Peterborough County. You will make a recommendation to the county in terms of how you wish them to consider and think of the application. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. So the proposal is to designate the land settlement area within the county official plan, taking the portion that's now rural and putting it into the hamlet boundary. It's worth noting that the County of Peterborough has been in the process of the last 4 years of trying to get the approval of a new official plan. It's been adopted at Peterborough County. It's been modified since adoption at Peterborough County. And to say it's in its third iteration, I think is correct, but
it's getting closer.
We are. It's a very unique situation, I would say, that you've been waiting for approvals for your new official plan for that length of time. As part of developing an official plan, we are all required to do projections in terms of growth projections, housing projections, with the underlying assumption that official plans are to accommodate up to a 20-year, now 30-year growth projection for our communities. And as part of that, you do a population projection, you identify your lands that are available for development, and you make sure that you've got enough lands designated to accommodate, as a minimum, your 20-year population projection. And the County of Peterborough commissioned a report, I'm calling it the Hempson Report, and Hempson is one of the premier demographic professional consulting firms in the province. And this is their core type of work, and they did a very detailed, comprehensive review of growth. And they made a number of recommendations in terms of expansion of residential areas to accommodate future growth. And one of the components that they included that affects North Kawartha is that they recommended that Woodview be expanded to, the hamlet be expanded to encompass the golf course lands. If, under a normal circumstance, the County of Peterborough official plan was approved by the province, there wouldn't be a need for a local official plan amendment that's before you today. That local official plan amendment is simply mirroring exactly what the new adopted county official plan is doing. And it was something that I know, in speaking with Mr. Challenger, that it was a frustration that in this day and age that we're having to duplicate efforts, but that is the world we're in. And so it's important that we appreciate that the official plan amendment itself is, in some respects, administrative in nature. It's simply putting the designation in place quicker through a local amendment process than what is being achieved at the province through the approval of the county official plan. There are other elements of the county's official plan that I think that are very worth highlighting for council. This idea of having sufficient lands for 20-year growth projection for your municipality is something that I don't think that you've thought about or had as an issue before you very much in the past. The provincial planning statement also stresses that you should have, as a minimum, 3 years supply of draft approved lots in your pocket to be able to accommodate growth in a timely fashion. It's not desirable for growth-related development proposals such as this to have to go through a 2 or 3 year planning approvals to get to that point. You should always have 3 year supply of lots. That's deemed to be good planning. I think should this application go forward, this will be one of your first opportunities to be able to say you have an inventory of draft approved lots that make you compliant with that element of the provincial policy statement. And I think that that's important to keep in mind as you're deliberating on this application. The official plan also sets out the types of studies that need to be done to support applications. The traffic impact study, the peer reviewing of the traffic impact study, the review of the traffic impact study by MTO and county highways, all of which have been completed. It speaks to the types of studies that are needed to support development on private services. And to this extent, the hydrogeologic assessment is perhaps the most critical document that has been prepared in support of this application. And it speaks to the ability of the land to be able to support the 59 lots on private well and septic system and not having any negative impact on surrounding properties or the aquifer in general. And I think that that is, as I said, an important study. It's been peer reviewed by other professionals, and I think it stands up very well as a supporting document. There are comments, and we'll highlight them a little bit later on, regarding Julian Lake and the impacts on Julian Lake. And as council is very well aware, the hamlet surrounds the southern, eastern, western half of Julian Lake. And there is a lot of existing residential development around the lake. This property is 640 meters to the closest point of the lake and is well outside of any reasonable impact assessment zone associated with the lake. And I made the statement in my report that comments on the negative impact on Julian Lake are not matters that I give too much weight to in my decision, that the distance exceeds everything that the Ministry of the Environment would suggest you look at, and that there isn't an issue in that regard. Your zoning bylaw has detailed policies on how to accommodate growth. The property is currently in a rural exception 124 zone, which was very site-specific related to the golf course. The proposal is to put it into a special residential zone, and then the stormwater block going into the open space zone, and the clubhouse lands going into the commercial zone, and then all the environmental elements that were identified in the EIS that was done, they will go into the environmental constraint zone. In terms of agency comments, there were comments from the Adderville First Nations. It was more an expression of their rights and interests in terms of the land use, duty to consult. They didn't critique the archaeological assessment, but I think it's important for council to appreciate that they did a stage 1 and stage 2 archaeological assessment as required under provincial legislation, and that the professional archaeologist provided the recommendation that no further work is necessary on site. And that's typically a primary concern from First Nations. There were also comments from the school board that, again, they were sort of stock comments that we can't guarantee we're going to be able to bus kids from the front door, and that they'll have to walk a certain distance to a sort of a coordinated bus stop. And that's a type of detail that gets worked out through the subdivision process. It gets recognized in a future subdivision agreement, and that's going to be a comment that will have to be accommodated as the project matures and goes through the various approvals. I've highlighted in the report and spent a fair bit of time in the report acknowledging that there were 20 comments that we received through the official plan and zoning process. It's also recognized there were comments through the county approval process. I've attempted to coordinate that and pull them all together. I can't definitively state that this is the only comments, but I think that it's a fairly accurate reflection for the public record of those that have provided comments. Before we get into the majority of the comments, it's worth noting that there were 4 comments that provide very thoughtful support for the application and felt that growth is what the community needed, growth in Woodview was needed, and that in general this was a good idea. There were 16 that didn't agree with that position. There was suggestions that it's not appropriate to expand the hamlet. I didn't find any of those arguments compelling in any way, shape, or form. I think that this is where growth should be going, and this is the way that planning is set up in Ontario, is to encourage communities like the hamlet of Woodview to grow and to expand as needed. There was interesting comment on Fire Route 35. There was concerns that Fire Route 35 may be negatively impacted as a result of this. I did a quick assessment of that, and I don't see where Fire Route 35 is impacted by the subdivision lands. It certainly goes through the northeast corner of the lands that Mr. Challenger will continue to retain and own outside of the subdivision and have legal recognition, but I don't think the subdivision or the official plan or zoning have any impact on that. But again, that may be something that's worth confirming through the subdivision process. I think, again, I spoke to Julian Lake, the environmental impact study. I think the study was accurate and correct and recognized existing natural features on the property, and that Julian Lake isn't a natural feature with this property. It's over 600 meters away. It is certainly a community feature and a feature of the hamlet and an important feature in the broader North Kawartha context, but it isn't germane to the subdivision itself. There were comments about the costs associated with a subdivision and what are the financials associated with this in terms of impact on the tax base. I think it's very important for council to appreciate that you will be required to take over ownership and maintenance of the roads once they're constructed. The roads get constructed by the applicant, done to your standards, inspected by professionals, have the peer reviewing of the inspection done by a third party. And then there is typically, after they've been constructed, a minimum 1-year warranty period where things settle and cracks happen and big trucks make ruts in asphalt. And they get fixed. And once you're satisfied that the road is just tickety-boo, to use a technical planning term, you take over operation and maintenance for it. It becomes your road. You pay to plow it, to keep the ditches clear, and to otherwise look after it. The same is true for the stormwater management pond. So there will be a stormwater management pond associated with this, where all stormwater will be collected and treated and then released back into the system. You will be responsible for that as well. Again, under the same terms. It gets built by the developer, it gets maintained for a warranty period. There's typically some sort of operation manual. You know, you need to clean it out every 5 years or so, things of that nature. And once you receive that, you assume it. All of which costs money. This is new road, this is new infrastructure. But you will also have the benefit of 58 residential lots and 1 commercial lot that will provide new taxation. And the assumption is that the additional costs for providing these services are covered by the additional taxation generated by the development. I make the claim in my report that new residential subdivision development is generally deemed to be revenue neutral, that the costs associated with maintaining the subdivision are covered by the increased taxation that's generated. There is also a suggestion a couple of times in the reports that the lot sizes should be increased, the number of lots decreased, and that instead of a 59 lot subdivision, it's a 30 or a 25 or something of that nature. I want council to appreciate that this is contrary to the direction in the provincial policy statement and in the official plan. You are to encourage the most efficient use of the lands that are designated for growth and development. We don't go and put large sprawling development on highly valuable growth lands, right? We use that smartly, efficiently, and that means that you try to maximize what you can get out of those lands. So you don't have to go through the exercise of expanding the community every 3 or 4 years, right? And so the idea of increasing lot sizes and decreasing the intensity of development falls contrary to the concept of efficient use of land. And I think that the proposal that's before you is a very efficient use of land and is maximizing what this hamlet land can do for the community. And I would encourage council to look at it as such. The last comment that I'll speak to on that matter was the idea that there isn't the support services in the hamlet to support 58 new families coming into the area. There's quite often a lag between residential growth and commercial or institutional or even industrial development. That there has to be a certain amount of residential population before you start seeing commercial and elements showing up. I think in this case we've got an established community. There's certainly amenities within the community, but I would also say that the more people that move into Woodview means the more people are going to shop in the area and support the local businesses and volunteer at the library and volunteer to be an emergency service operator for the community. And that there is always a bit of a lag between residential growth and the other elements that make a complete community. But without growth, those elements have a tendency to wither and die, and you lose those amenities as well. So I think that in general, this is both positive in terms of community development and as well as sort of the financial position of the municipality. My concluding statement is that there are no comments that I reviewed through the public consultation process or the agency's process that would change my opinion on the overall merit of the applications before you. I think this is good growth. I think it's good planning. It's the way communities should be planned. It's in the proper location, supported by the proper studies. And my professional opinion and recommendation to council is that you endorse the official plan amendment as submitted before you, and that you provide notice of that endorsement to Peterborough County, and also that you pass the zoning bylaw that's before you to support this application, with the understanding, and it's stated in the bylaw document itself, that the zoning does not come into force and effect until the official plan amendment is fully approved and through the appeal process. That's my report.
It's a heck of a report.
It's perhaps one of the biggest proposals you're going to have as a community. I took this matter quite seriously and felt that it was, we needed to respect the comments that were provided, acknowledge them, but also critique them fairly in terms of their planning merit. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, all right. Well, does anybody have any questions for Forbes right off the hop? Jim?
No, not unless somebody else has it.
Well, I was gonna just ask council. I was gonna see if the applicant's representative wanted to maybe add, if there was anything else you wanted to add to that report, but did anybody have anything right now for Forbes?
I just have one.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
understand
use the
you
mic.
can't hear me. I just have one quick one I want to confirm, right? Make sure I'm right, that we are only using planning, and if we have any concerns outside of the planning issues, that we would need to do it through the commenting process later with the county.
Yes, that's a very good point, and I'll reiterate, Council. You're going to be asked to provide comment to the county on the subdivision itself. You will provide a recommendation of a list of conditions that get added to the county's decision for draft approval. It's very similar to the consent process, where the township provides comments to the land division committee on the conditions you want imposed on the severance, and then the applicant proceeds with that conditional approval, and they satisfy the conditions, and eventually they get their lot. The subdivision process is very similar in terms of you're asked for your comment, you provide the conditions. It's just a magnitude of scale, where you may have 5 or 6 conditions with a consent. It's not uncommon to see 40 or 50 conditions with a plan of subdivision. The other thing that is extremely important for council to appreciate is that even though Peterborough County is the approval authority with the subdivision, the vast majority of the conditions get satisfied through the subdivision agreement executed between the developer and the municipality. So in many respects, you're the big dog on this in terms of satisfying all of the conditions. And it becomes subdivision agreements are an extremely important but complex development agreement that gets registered on title, that talks about how and when you assume ownership. It talks about financial securities, talks about a whole range of issues. And that ultimately will rest with the township. So today is to focus on the official plan and zoning amendment, but it's important when you deliberate to appreciate there's another step with a lot of detail in it. Does that answer your question, Councilor?
That's perfect, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Colin?
And it's just a delicate balance, sorry.
Yes, Mike, thank you.
It's such a delicate sort of tightrope that we'll have to walk, because I want to try to move things along as efficiently as possible. And the last thing I want is for the applicant to get an official plan amendment, go through all this, and then a list of recommendations come from the township that they don't agree with, and then the project is stalled. And they've gone through, spent more money, spent more time. So it's just got to be a balance of being able to communicate the challenges that we think may come forward while still respecting that the application that we're dealing with is about the official plan amendment. And I think the fact that the hydro-G study, traffic study, and all this was given is kind of connecting it for us. The one thing that jumped out at me, though, was the stock comments that we received. So the one that jumped out is definitely not stock to me, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, was from the school board, where they actually mentioned that we need to lower the speed limit on the county road in order to be able to get a bus stop. So one, is that standard? And two, would that impact the traffic capacity numbers that are being used for the traffic impact study?
Those are great points, Councillor, thank you. So it's not uncommon in this day and age for school boards to speak about the logistics associated with pickup and drop off of kids from new growth and development. What that looks like, how it gets addressed, those are all matters that will be detailed in the subdivision conditions of draft approval of the subdivision. And it would require coordination with the county and the school board to come up with the appropriate traffic controls to be able to make sure that kids can be picked up and dropped off safely. And that's very sort of typical. Most of the conditions that you'll see in the future relate to the recommendations that are in the studies themselves and getting statements into the subdivision agreement. I personally don't see any anything about this subdivision at this stage that would suggest that there would be unique onerous conditions with the subdivision that would stop it. I think if there was an issue that was in that sort of list of things that's sort of a deal breaker, that we would be talking about it now, and we would deal with it now. So there's nothing that I'm anticipating that would be outrageous and a deal breaker down the road, sir. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And then just one quick follow-up, because I think it does tie back into the initial plan and the zoning. Based on the zoning that we see today, if there is a recommendation for a second entrance to be required, is that still able to be accommodated under this layout?
I think a second entrance could be accommodated at some point in time. I'm not sure, based on my experience, it would be a justification. And it would certainly be something that I think we would want to engage both the County Road Authority and MTO and the Challengers traffic expert in. Just for council's knowledge, I have had a couple of development proposals where additional entrance has been sort of the flashpoint and the discussion point. And in looking for standards, we've twice now, I've relied on the NFPA standard out of the States as really the only documented sort of emergency services, safety, access standard type of concept. And the responses typically after 200 units is when a secondary entrance into a property is deemed to be important from an emergency services standpoint. This being at 59, including the commercial, would be well below that standard, and I think that there's some efficiencies that can be achieved in terms of maintenance, snow plowing in particular, having an in and out. But I don't think from an emergency services standpoint, a secondary entrance would be triggered. That is one issue that if that was a burning issue for council, that you may wish to highlight in terms of a condition of draft approval. I don't think it would stop the official planner zoning. That's, you're getting into the sort of the subdivision design component. And it would clearly cause a need for reconfiguration of the layout, but again, that's also not uncommon through the draft approval process. So I think your assumption, Councillor, is correct that it's not really an official planner's zoning issue, but more a subdivision issue. And I'm not convinced at this point that it's a warranted change.
All right. Okay, thanks, Forrest. Ken, I just, if you want to come up, you're gonna use the mic, and please add anything that you think needs to be
Yes,
brought
thank you.
forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Kent Randall, Ecoview Consulting Planner for the applicant. I just want to thank Mr. Simon for his thorough report and overview. I'm not going to retread everything, but I do want to add a few things. Certainly, just to go directly into the technical elements of this, so traffic and hydro-G and that sort of thing. I can't speak for Ford, but I'm sure he would agree with me that the planning merits in general are informed by those technical merits. So when I say it's consistent with provincial planning statement, it conforms to the official plan, that's informed by the hydrogeological assessment that's peer reviewed. It's informed by the traffic impact study that's peer reviewed. So it's not that there's broader planning questions that we have to answer. But when you look through these documents, there's all sorts of things that we have to address that are technical matters that we have addressed, like hydro-G, like geotechnical, like traffic, stormwater, et cetera. So I just want to be clear about that, and that the plan of subdivision application versus the OPA or the zoning, as far as I'm concerned, it's all addressed. Technical matters are addressed through, now specifically the plan of subdivision has draft plan conditions, as Forbes pointed out. That's where you would ask for certain things that need to be addressed before plan is registered, before it's constructed, which are informed by those technical studies, but our opinions are also informed by those things. So I do think it is relevant, and I would just point out in terms of the traffic, there was a question about lowering the speed limit. Lowering the speed limit wouldn't have any issue on capacity. However, the second entrance, there's no technical justification for a second entrance, absolutely none. We would oppose a condition that would require that, certainly, because there hasn't been from both our consultant, the peer review consultant, as well as the county roads, and they're the ones who maintain that road. So I just want to be clear about that is not a, that's not a technical, there's no technical justification for that. Just to go back to the settlement area question, I just want to point out that we've got the current official plan, we've got the new official plan. I do want to make it clear that the current, or the old, if you want to call it that, soon to be old, official plan is very clear, even now, that it's Apsley and Woodview that are your main settlement areas. That's where all the growth is supposed to, most of the growth in your township is supposed to be directed, not just Apsley. And this isn't some sort of new thing that's come out of the new OP. It's in the existing OP, those two places specifically. So it is something that's it's not a new idea, right? And the other issue, as you all know, with whether it's Apsley or Woodview or Julian Lake or wherever you're looking, there are a lot of the lands that are identified within those settlement areas can't be developed because they're swamp, they're rock, you're dealing with Canadian Shield. So it's very difficult to actually develop a lot of these lands. And what we have here is this ideal spot. It was a golf course, it's clear, it's free of significant woodlands and other heritage features that would impede or constrain development. It's free of wetlands and that sort of thing. So it's an ideal spot, and that's why it makes sense to have it expanded. And I don't want to retread that because that decision's been made. But I think I just wanted to point that out. That I think it's important to point that out. And then just to dovetail on what Forbes had said about the taxation, there's also development charges as well for these lots that the township will recoup. It's one-time payment, but that is another form of revenue that will come in.
If I may, technically, we don't have development.
Oh, you
charges,
don't,
so-
okay.
We're the one and only township that does it, but the county will.
But okay, yes, county, but I would also point out though to the cash in lieu parkland there is no park that's being proposed here, so you will receive 5% in terms of your recreational fund, that sort of thing. So I think that's all I wanted to touch on, and just to point out too, back to the technical comments, the peer reviews, and I had noted that all the peer reviews have been cleared. I think, and also I provided a letter as well. It should be in the package, and I believe Forbes had put it in, attached it to his report, addresses public comments. It clarifies the peer reviews that the stormwater management had not completely been cleared by Stantec, but last week we did receive the final clearance from Stantec for the stormwater, so everything is free and clear in terms of technical review. So I think that's about all I have to say about that, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Kent. Are there any questions for Kent on this all? Not seeing any. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, I do want to acknowledge the time. We still have some other planning applications. And also I want to, point out that this is not the public hearing. We had the public hearing, earlier, to have all of those comments, which Forbes has then reviewed as well as Ken had brought forward. But I did want to provide an opportunity, with limitation, if there's any public member here in attendance that has any particular question with the information that was presented in Forbes's report. I just wanted to make sure that if you had any kind of like a technical thing or anything specific for clarity, I would certainly provide an opportunity for folks to ask. But it's not an opportunity to kind of rehash sort of people's positions on it because, as I said, we did have that comment period already. So I'm not seeing any indication that anyone has anything, and I'm not seeing, oh, I saw a hand somewhere online. I thought I did, maybe I didn't. I'm not sure, I don't see any, oh, there. Yeah, Greg, I think, I see you and then you disappear. Hang on, I'm gonna ask you to unmute. And maybe try again. Oh, good morning, can you hear us, Greg?
Yeah,
Okay, perfect. Did you have a particular question for clarification for?
some of the points that were made. First, with respect to Julian Lake, my daughter and I own property on Julian Lake. And throughout the reports and the comments today, it seems to be that everyone is under the assumption that since this development is over 300 meters from Julian Lake, and therefore beyond the buffer zone that the province has suggested for at capacity lakes, that it can have no effect on Julian Lake. But I don't believe groundwater is bound by those kinds of measurements. And in fact, the Ontario government in that lakeshore capacity model specifically says that in cases of larger developments, specifically mention subdivisions, that there should be consideration of assessment of those developments. So 300 feet is not a hard, or meters is a hard and fast rule that if you're beyond that boundary, that you can ignore the possibility that a development will have any effect on the lake. And excuse me.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, okay.
Groundwater, can travel kilometers, and I see nothing in any of the reports, hydrogeological, any of the reports, where anybody has assessed whether the groundwater from this area discharges into Julian Lake. It could be done, can be done, but I don't see that it was ever done. And I think that should be a condition that be examined whether in fact that is the case, whether it does discharge or doesn't.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. I was just gonna say, if I can, I'm gonna ask for the applicant and or our planner to speak to that specific question that you have, okay?
Okay.
So Kent's Kent's gonna come up and he's gonna answer it.
If I could interrupt for a minute.
Yeah. Hello, yeah.
I've had a family medical emergency since the beginning of June when this has all come to the final stages. And in fact, I have a medical appointment today in the not too near future today. So if I could present the other items related to that report, and then he can respond to all of them rather than doing it. I would appreciate that.
with all due respect, Greg, and I do see that you're on the list of folks that did provide comment with that. And like I said, we had the public hearing last month for this. So this is not an opportunity to sort of rehash those things.
I couldn't be there.
No,
I
but you
couldn't
did provide
participate
a
in that.
written submission. You did provide a written submission, and that carries just as much weight as being here in person and presenting verbally. So I just want you to know that we did receive that, and those comments were considered by the planner as well as by the applicant's representative. So I don't think we can go on anymore, and with all due respect, I have other planning applications that are coming forward. So I think I gotta leave it at that. And Kent Randall is going to speak to your specific concerns with respect to the
Well,
Julie.
he has raised issues in his report that
Okay, well,
were not raised before, which I think I should have the right to respond to.
okay, yeah, and he's gonna respond to that now, thank you.
Madam Chair, I've seen Mr. Sheehan's correspondence. I've heard this from him in his correspondence before. So just to point out, we have assessed groundwater. So what happens is we assess groundwater at the property boundary, right? So the idea is that you cannot have increased nitrate levels, which comes from leaching of septic systems. You can't have that be increased and travel past the property boundary, essentially. That's like more or less what they're looking for, right? So that you do not contaminate wells in the area, you don't contaminate natural features. So by virtue of that assessment, we would meet any sort of not even a requirement, suggestion in the handbook. And what he's referring to is the capacity handbook that the province has put out. From a strictly requirement standpoint for at capacity lakes, it is 300 meters, that's provincially mandated, and we're far beyond that 300 meter catchment area. So that's what we were referring to when we say we don't have to do a capacity assessment of the lake itself, right? But it doesn't mean we haven't done an assessment of groundwater and what happens when the groundwater leaves the site. And the conclusion is there's no negative impact when the groundwater leaves the site. So so it's not to say that groundwater doesn't travel, of course, yes, we acknowledge that, but an assessment of that groundwater has been made.
Okay, all right, thank you very much for that. Okay, and thank you, Mr. Sheehan, for bringing that forward. Forbes, did you want to add something to that, please?
Thank you. I think it's worth acknowledging that between the 600 plus meters between the subdivision and the lake, there's also a provincial highway that's had upgrades and detailed review and assessments done. In planning, the worst case scenarios for setbacks are quarries and landfills, both of which are capped at 500 meters. We don't look at the impact of a landfill site beyond 500 meters. We don't look at the impact of a quarry site beyond 500 meters. This site is over 600 meters away. And for residential development with septic systems being the only element, that we have a study that says there will be no nitrates going beyond the boundary of this development. It gives me a lot of confidence that that Julian Lake will not be negatively impacted.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Okay, I'm bringing it back to council now. I want to thank Forbes and as well as the applicant and as well as all of the folks that did provide comment. Forbes is correct in identifying this is a significant development for our community. And I said that the last one would have been the McFadden Road development here in Apsley back in the late 70s. So we're going almost 50 years maybe. And it's huge, for sure. But we also know, I mean, not just here, but everywhere, you know, the need and the demand for housing and for places for folks to live and work. So there's been a lot that's gone into this over the years and a lot of good information that's come forward and the recommendations are before us. So I'm going to look to members of council here if you've got any burning questions or thoughts on this, or I'm looking for a motion. So anybody? Jim?
Okay, thank you. I can certainly see why I tried to shorten up the time.
Oh, your mic. Thanks.
I tried to shorten up the time that you would come back to us with your report for it, but I can certainly see why you just said it wasn't possible. And very, very, very detailed, the reports, so, I moved that the, Township of North Kawartha, recommend to Peterborough Council that they improve OPA number 80, and that council endorse the proposed zoning amendment, or pass the zoning amendment, I should say, to append it to this report.
Okay, all right, is there a seconder for that motion? Dan will second it. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? That motion is approved. All right, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate that. I am looking at time, I know we're in a public hearing, but I am going to declare a 5-minute recess, just so we can have a bit of a break. And I apologize, we're gonna get a little bit behind schedule, we'll try to get it back on. So 5-minute recess, thanks. All right, welcome back, everyone. And we're gonna do a little bit of a shuffle when it comes to our agenda. I'm going to declare that we're going out of statutory public hearing because we do have a deputation that was scheduled for 10:30. Mr. Guy Sprung is coming forward to speak to safety concerns with Highway 620 in Chandos Beach. Good morning, Guy, welcome.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much.
And I'll get you to use the mic as well too, so make sure
Indeed.
all the folks can hear you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity
Thanks, Edward.
and for pushing the button on the mic. So I'm here to impress upon council that it should impress upon the county to lower the speed limit on the section of Highway 620 as it goes around Chandos Beach. We all know what I'm talking about. It's about 12 kilometers to the east of Apsley. At the moment, the speed limit is 80 kilometers, which, as we know, means about 90, and for some people, 100 and more. I shared a clip that I'd made. It's a bit rough. I hope you got a chance to see it. It's rough, like I say, but it sort of makes the point. The segment around the boat launch, I took the long weekend in May. So that's a kind of a, I think it's a pretty average weekend, end of May, beginning of June for that boat launch. The parking space is not there. You end up with trucks and trailers on the highway. And I live right close there, so I can tell you that over the years, the traffic is not decreasing. It's slowly and incrementally been increasing. I also showed you a clip of just how precarious it is when you try and exit that parking lot. You have, because of the curve in the highway, you have 30, 40 yards of visibility. The clip of the beach I took just the long weekend after July 1st. In my sort of the evidence of my own eyes, that's not the heaviest weekend. The rest of the cottagers and so on start arriving mid-July. I have seen August 1st weekend, I've actually seen the parking lot full and parking on the road as well for that section. And again, just trying to get in and out of the parking lot. It's a little precarious because of the curve. And finally, I just showed you after the beach, the highway passes the beach. By the way, I suspect it's the most popular beach north of Highway 7. Kudos to North Kawartha, did a really wonderful job in renovating it a couple of years ago. As I said in the video, I particularly love the maple trees. Looking forward to my grandkids playing in the shade. So it passes the beach, passes the boat launch, and then rises. And at the very top of the rise, there's a blind hill. And I suspect, again, speaking subjectively, that it's the worst blind hill in our township. Now, I can be accused of a bit of a conflict of interest because one of the driveways that is right there is my own. But I will also say that the idea for pushing for the zone, the speed limit going down was that of my neighbor Robin and Sheila Stafford, who live across the way and complain about some hair-raising turns when they go in and out of their driveway. So I have I don't think it's a question of if. I think with the increased traffic, especially with the popularity of the beach, I think it's just a question of when some kind of an accident is going to happen. So I really impress strongly upon you the idea of lowering that speed limit. I've just finished working as an enumerator for StatsCan, and that gave me an opportunity to get around the other townships, the neighboring townships a little bit. And Wollaston Beach has a speed limit of 40 kilometers. Steenberg Lake Road, 40 kilometers. Much of Lower Faraday is 60, and in some places it's actually 40 as well. So I hope that our neighboring townships do not care more about our safety than North Kawartha does. I hope that's not what's going on. So here's the odd thing. If you go past that blind hill for another kilometer, just by Rootsaw Road, out of the blue, suddenly you get a 60-kilometer speed limit. Why it's there, I don't know. It's long before Glenalda. It's no more built up than the highway before it, and certainly a heck of a lot less precarious than the beach zone, but it's suddenly 60 kilometers. So what I'm suggesting is that you impress upon the county to advance that 60-kilometer speed limit to just west of the beach itself. So it means adding another 3 kilometers at a guess, maybe 4 kilometers to that 60-kilometer speed limit. And the other thing that I would strongly suggest, and again this morning I drove by the beach, I was doing my 80 kilometers, yes, I was doing 80, not 60, and a black pickup truck passed me while I was doing 80 right at the beach level, okay? So I suggest the section of the beach and the boat launch, and ideally up to the blind hill, be a no passing zone. And I think that's, I've talked to a few of our community and they basically figure it's a no-brainer. I hope that it receives a sympathetic understanding. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Can I ask, I see you have some notes there. I'm just wondering, would you be able to provide us sort of with a written submission? Because
Sure.
What I'm thinking would make sense is that we're going to receive your deputation, but that we would like to forward it on to the county for their response and
I will
comment.
absolutely send it on, and feel free to send that, the video clips to the county as well.
Absolutely, we'll share those too.
Because anyway, I think it is not a question of when, of if, it's a question of when. So I hope we can move on it.
And just so you know, it's a little bit less cumbersome to go through a speed change process at the county level than the provincial level, as we've tried to with 128. But we actually have on our consent agenda today a report from the county where they did a bunch of speed zone changes, and they've got a whole list of sort of the different, what's currently existing, what's been changed or whatever.
Okay.
So like I said, it's not an impossible feat for sure, but
Okay.
we do need to make sure that get them the information so that they can respond.
All right.
Colin.
I don't know if it's for sort of some discussion, because there's certainly a few things that I do agree with here. I find that heading into Glenalda, the 60 zone does start earlier than I expect. I don't like the idea of having just a 3-kilometer gap, but I don't actually support taking that 60 and extending it all the way past the beach. So there might be some opportunity to rejig it, make sure that there's appropriate distances between speed level drops, and assess it a little better, because as it stands with that intersection, I can't support that, but I'm generally supportive of lowering the speed at the beach, because driving around it, I think I'm going too fast at 80.
it can be done in many ways, Colin, obviously, but if you're in support of the 60 zone around the beach, it could just be made around the beach, obviously. It doesn't, you'll figure out a way that works best.
And I think the other thing too is to also, get some feedback on other traffic calming measures, because, whether it's signage, like you've got hidden entrances, those kind of things, like the hills, like whether it's flashing lights or whatever, but there are lots of things that I think the county can do in addition to considering speed limit changes, right? And it's just like educating people as well. Like I appreciate you said I wanted 80, but you were doing the speed limit. I think it would be in violation if you were going slower, right? So, it's all good things to consider, but I'm glad that you brought this forward, and I'm looking for a motion to receive Mr. Sprung's presentation, and that we forward on his deputation with the video and written comments to the county for their comment and review. Okay, Ruth Ann, you'll make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, and I just want to say that I think that the May long weekend is certainly not the busiest weekend for boats along there. The weekend before, when it opens.
And I agree, and
it's horrendous.
And it's not getting any less year over year. It's getting more and more.
So I would support it.
Okay, so moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Colin. All those in favor? That's good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, and I appreciate you waiting a little bit longer. So we're now going to try and get things back on schedule here. Excuse me. I am going to declare that we're going back into statutory public hearing, and our planner is coming forward. Laura, good morning, and you're going to take us through a few applications that are left on the agenda here. So
yes, so good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor. In council. So the first application is ZA 0426. The recommendation is that council approve zoning bylaw amendment application ZA-04-26 to rezone the conditionally approved severed lots from rural to rural residential as a condition of consent applications B1325 and B1425 to address the undersized severed lots, and to rural with exception, which would be rural exception 359, to address the undersized retained lot. So the applications for consent were brought before council back in April of 2025, and council conditionally approved these with the conditions being rezoning of all subject properties. We do have a provision in our rural zone that would exclude having to rezone a severed lot, but it does have to be 2 hectares, and all of the severed lots in this instance are 1 hectare each. The property information is as follows. The address is 12247 Highway 28, roll number 1536020-202-34800. The owner is Robert Scaife, agent David French. As I mentioned, the zoning is rural, the official plan designation is rural. Essentially, the retained lot will be 6.7 hectares in size, which is still undersized for our rural zone, which is why we would need to put an exception on that. And each proposed lot is 1 acre. One of them is 1.2 acres, but they do have sufficient frontage for the rural residential zones. So this application was measured against the provincial planning statement that the province of Ontario put out in 2024. It was found to be compliant. This application has also been measured against the Peterborough County official plan, and that is compliant as well. And I will note that the County of Peterborough has reviewed these applications already and compared them to their documents that they use for planning, and they also found that they would be compliant. So in conclusion, the application to rezone the subject lots to rural with exception for the retained and rural residential for the severed lots is consistent with the PPS and the official plan and should be approved. We have had no comments on this application.
all right, thank you for that, Laura. And I'm not seeing anybody online or in the gallery here that wants to speak on this application. Is there any member of the public online perhaps that wants to make a comment on this? Just gonna flip your little hand if you do, but I'm not seeing any indication. Again, nobody here in the gallery, so I'm gonna turn it over to council members. What do you say?
Nobody else wants to speak this morning?
That'll be you, Jim.
Okay, well, we put these conditions on, so this is just taking them off. So, I move that we approve applications at A-04-26.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Colin, all those in favor? That is approved. On to the next one, please.
Thank you very much. So the next application is ZA-05-26. The recommendation is that council approve zoning bylaw amendment application ZA-05-26 to rezone the conditionally approved severed lots from rural zone to rural residential, as these are conditions of consent to address the undersized severed lots. This application was the severance application was brought before council in December of 2024. Both of these proposed severed lots do not meet the size requirements for the rural zone. They also do not meet the size requirements to benefit from section 17.20, which would allow for one of the lots to be excluded from a rezoning. They're both too small for that. The retained lot will be sufficiently sized to keep the rural zone. The property information is that the roll number is 153601020008900. The owners are Jason and Stephanie Nofke. Zoning is rural, official plan designation is rural. The retained lot will be 18.46 hectares. The proposed severed lot 1 is 1.07 hectares, and lot 2 is the same size. They both have sufficient frontage for the rural residential zone. As with the last application, this one was measured against the provincial planning statement that the province put out in 2024 and is found to meet the intent of those policies. The application was also measured against the County of Peterborough's official plan, and it meets those policies as well. In conclusion, the application to rezone both of the 1.07 hectare severed lots to rural residential is consistent with the PPS in the county's OP and should be approved, and we have had no comments on this one either.
Okay, good to know. All right, again, I'm gonna ask if there's anybody here that wants to speak on this application, either online or live in person here. And I'm not seeing any indication that anybody wants to make a comment on these conditions of consent. So I'm looking to council. Who's prepared to, Ruth Ann?
I would move the recommendation.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Colin will second that. All those in favor? That is approved as well. All right. Carry on, Laura.
Thank you very much. I would like to just let council know that there will be a change to the zoning bylaw that's attached to the next application, and perhaps Deputy Mayor Whelan would like to speak to that.
Yeah, you better, because it hinges on what I'm gonna do next.
Okay, we received applications, but we've removed everything to do with docks from the bylaw, and it's been redrafted without the docks.
Okay, then if I may, Kelly, please disregard my pecuniary declaration submission, because now I can participate and I don't need to leave for that, and I can certainly speak to the other things that are coming forward in the housekeeping amendment. So, okay, Laura, take us through that, please.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation is that council approve zoning bylaw amendment application ZA-06-26 entitled Housekeeping Bylaw for the entirety of the Township of North Kawartha to update the comprehensive zoning bylaw 2013-26 as amended, as it is consistent with the policy provisions of both the provincial planning statement and the County of Peterborough's official plan. I will note that we received 5 comments. 4 had to do with docks, and 1 comment had to do with the proposal in its entirety, which was from Holly Richards-Conley, and she's in support of all of the changes being proposed.
Can I just add to that? Just been thinking of comments, but it was just interesting the timing. I believe I copied you on it, but there was a resident who had reached out about consideration for backyard chickens, and I was like, stay tuned, it's coming. So
Yes.
I would think that they would probably be very, very happy with that proposal. Anyway.
So I did speak with a number of contractors and residents who have or may have potential planning applications coming in the future to let them know that hold tight. We'll see what happens today and we'll go from there. And they all seem very happy about that. So this application is coming before council after reviewing about 3 or 4 years of planning applications to see what was coming forward on a consistent basis that was also being approved on a consistent basis. So working with Deputy Mayor Whalen as a committee, we looked at those applications and we came up with a number of potential fixes that maintain the integrity of the zoning bylaw as well as the intent of the official plan and PPS, but would be of benefit to the residents of North Kawartha. So first, we have the building height. Currently, our zoning bylaw in a waterfront property, so zone shoreline residential or a shoreline residential island, as you move further back from the water, you're allowed minimal increases in height. This is causing a lot of issue where you have an older cottage built close to the water, and it's likely a log structure, you know, the ones built in the 60s and 70s, and adding 4 feet of height doesn't even bring it up to today's standards for snow load and that type of thing. So the recommendation is that the maximum height is increased to 12 meters as of 9 meters from the high water mark. And that's for any rebuild. That is from lowest point of grade to peak. So we are currently measuring from lowest point of grade to mid-span. And that is also causing some confusion where there are various types of roofs, some flat, some peaked, some gabled, that type of thing. And we're looking for where is the maximum height, where is the mid-span, how do you calculate that? This takes away that confusion. It also allows for proper snow load going forward. So the increase in height previously had been to address snow load as well, but this one really just, it gets rid of having to figure out the mid-span, but allow for snow load to be addressed from the contractor's point of view. So this increase in height to 12 meters and the way that it's measured to peak would be for all residential properties. And like I said, it would not be applicable in the first 9 meters of the high water mark because that is our no-go zone essentially. So if there's an increase in height within that setback, it would still have to come before council for approvals and permissions. Moving on, the province has updated second dwelling units to be additional dwelling units. So we changed the wording to that just to be consistent with the province. We also removed the maximum setback from the principal dwelling as well as the size requirements. Oftentimes, our township has quite large properties and being located 30 meters from the principal dwelling is not always suitable or appropriate for the lot. So this just gives a little bit of extra incentive for residents to build an additional dwelling unit, which provides extra housing in the township, which is a benefit across the board. The next one is accessory detached garages. So again, this has been increased in height to 10 meters to accommodate a 2-story garage. What has been happening is that we have been permitting a 1.5-story garage in the township, which visually is not much different than a 2-story garage. So if you're looking at a 1.5-story garage, the height difference between that and a 2-story is non-existent. So increasing the height, allowing the 2 stories, a bunkhouse use is still permitted in the upper story of the detached garage, but we're looking to also permit other habitable spaces such as a gym, a den, games room, which we don't permit currently. This would also include a washroom. So at one time we did have washrooms permitted in garages, for example. with the last housekeeping update, that was removed, and we've had a number of requests to bring it back. So we also have a number of requests for gyms, dens, libraries, game rooms, all of that type of thing. And this would just keep people from coming to council because they wanted to put their gym equipment on the second story of their garage. Then we are going to move on to gazebos, detached decks, and saunas. The change here is that we are adding saunas to items permitted within the first 9-meter setback to 30-meter setback from the high water mark, capping the size of a sauna at 86 square feet or 8 square meters. Doing some research, that is a pretty big sauna, and I think that should cover quite a bit of what people would be looking for. That would be like a whole Danish family kind of sauna. And I'm speaking of that with a brother who lives in Denmark. We're proposing that the sauna can be located on an attached deck or a detached deck. So that way you can put a small little sauna, have a deck there to cool off, and then hop back in. Next is backyard chickens. We have talked about this already. Putting some requirements around the backyard chickens just to cap how many hens would be permitted on lots that are residential but not rural. So rural is allowed agricultural uses as of right. The exception is waterfront lots. So if there is a shoreline residential property and they want chickens, at this time it would not be permitted. We want to make sure that the nutrients from the chickens are not getting into the lake by accident or any other way. So the requirements, safe storage of the feed in steel containers to eliminate the likelihood of rats. Hens only, no roosters. We don't need people waking up at 4:30 in the morning from their neighbors. So that is that. Home industries and occupations, we've removed the maximum size, but noted that the use has to be clearly subordinate to the residential use. Bunkhouses. Bunkhouses have come before council very frequently for the area. So the proposal is to increase from 400 square feet to 500 square feet. Still, the maximum 5% lot coverage for accessory structures needs to be adhered to. This, however, would be excluding decks, landings, and stairs, which are currently included. So if there is a bunkhouse that is on any type of elevation and you need stairs to access it, and the landing, currently we would take that measurement of area and add it to be included in the 400 square feet. Decks, landings, and stairs are relatively low impact development, and they don't have that built development style to them when viewing from the lake. So excluding that from the area of the bunkhouse is what we're proposing. Again, though, 5% still has to be adhered to. Minimum dwelling size. This is a new trend that has been popping up in about the past decade. Tiny homes, small homes. The recommendation is to remove the minimum footprint area, and instead it just has to meet the Ontario Building Code requirements. So there are minimum separations between a stove and flammable surfaces, for example, and that would be up to the building department to just make sure that it is in conformity. Other than that, dwelling should be able to be whatever size is sufficient for the property and the builder and the owner. So the provincial planning statement was thought of in every one of the topics here, and it was found to be in conformity. I also reviewed the Peterborough County official plan, and all of these updates are in conformity with that document as well. I have not heard from any agencies that were circulated, but as I mentioned, we did receive 5 comments for being about docks, which that topic is being set to the side. And in conclusion, it is expected that the proposed amendments will reduce the amount of applications being brought before the council or the Committee of Adjustment, since what is being proposed in this housekeeping bylaw is reflective of what has been approved by council or committee over the past 3 years. The proposed amendment is consistent with the PPS and the official plan and should be approved.
All right, thank you for that, Laura.
You're welcome.
Now, this is a public hearing, so I need to make sure that I ask if there's anyone here that wants to speak on any of the items that were identified coming forward. And I don't see anyone online or any indication here in the gallery that anybody wants to speak on these things. So I'll turn it over to council because I'm assuming council has some questions or comments with respect to this. So who wants to get started?
We picked the low, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just a little, and first off, I'm in general agreement with everything that I'm reading here. I'm just a little surprised to be seeing this document now. If this is considered housekeeping, then everybody does a lot deeper spring cleaning of their house than I do. Feels like half of a comprehensive zoning bylaw review that we have a public committee that was drawn up for being done independently. This is a lot of changes. There weren't any public comments that were received. We don't have anybody that's here to see it, but we know that this is important enough for the public that we decided to drop a committee for it. So, and while I'm in general support of it, I'm struggling to see why this document's being presented this way right now, to be honest.
Okay, I'd just like to reply to that, Colin. This is low-hanging fruit. This is stuff that, as the planner says, we've had application after application for every one of those things. And we haven't turned down one of them, not one.
We've had applications for saunas and backyard chickens and changing our home industries.
We've had inquiries about them all. And if you don't agree with that, then you have to speak against it. But as I say, we picked, and the one thing that we did pick was the docks, which we got comments on. So we, as I said, the first thing, we pulled those out. The rest of it, I feel very, very, very confident that it's the right way to go, but that's up to council.
Okay, Laura, you wanted to speak on that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Councillor McClellan. We have quite a number of inquiries about saunas in particular. Currently, if you were to put a sauna on your property, on a waterfront property, you would, and it was within 30 meters of the high water mark, you would have to go through an official plan amendment as well as a zoning bylaw amendment, whereas we permit a gazebo, for example. So the intention of the use is relatively similar to a gazebo. I would say 1 to 2 times a month we get a request for saunas, and we generally have to say no, not unless you're willing to jump through all of these hoops. For the backyard chickens, that's a huge thing. That's been a discussion going around most of the province for the past decade, having to do with food sovereignty, keeping your food local, that type of thing. So what I also did is I researched other municipal housekeeping bylaws to ensure we weren't overextending our reach with this one. And the nature of housekeeping bylaws across the board is to look for what is being brought before council that generally already exists in the zoning bylaw, but is being brought to have amended or varied on a very consistent basis. So under that scope, this would be definitely considered a housekeeping update. We did add things like backyard chickens and the sauna, and that just has to do with what we get on a day-to-day basis, calling in and requesting and asking about, and it really would feel silly to tell someone, for a 45 square foot sauna, you have to go through the applications at the county level as well. So this eliminates that issue for us to have to deal with, and for properties who would like to enjoy a sauna to be able to have one, because it is low impact.
And Colin, when we did the survey, an awful lot of people wrote in and said, I wasn't allowed to do it, I paid the township $1,500 and now I can do it. You know, and that's the way it is.
I don't disagree with any of that, but I don't know why we drew up an entire committee to deal with this, and just sort of to run it in parallel. What this feels like to me, and what I would not have done, is at the short-term rental advisory committee, me just not having meetings, deciding what I thought was low-hanging fruit, and coming forward with a report to council about what the short-term rental situation should look like. Like, we have a committee for this. I don't know why, if it continues to come up over time and time again, why the committee wouldn't be dealing with that, and instead council would deal with this entire thing at once.
There is no committee.
What happened to the committee?
No, everybody quit.
Well, why wasn't I made aware of this?
Well, if you were listening, you did.
The challenge.
It was brought forward, but it's a long, long time ago. Everybody quit at Christmas time,
Well, dissolved the committee.
coming into the new year.
If I may, there's a couple of things, and I think because, we are 4 years into waiting for our official plan, and it was sort of, I think, we were anticipating the official plan would be approved, and then you'd have a committee, and we'd get to work on the entire, we're gonna revamp the entire thing. And then there was some discussion about whether or not there would be an opportunity to partner with other municipalities to see if they wanted to review and kind of come up with some consistency. Certainly things that we've heard on different areas like lakes with multiple townships, to have consistency within the different rules and regs and regulations. Fortunately, the province has kind of caught us in a bit of a pickle, because they keep changing the goalposts and they keep changing the planning rules and legislation, so nothing really came forward. But as far as, I think, as a housekeeping amendments, I mean, like, this can come forward at any time, whether it's by a committee or just staff bringing it forward or whatever. So at the end of the day, I mean, like, I don't really have a concern with the process for this. I think these are important things that are being brought forward. I think, like, the comments that you've made, Laura, in terms of, like, the comments received, like, I know about the saunas, I hear about it all the time, right? And then you see them, like, not that I'm out there looking, but they popped up on people's shorelines, because the thing is, in the sauna, go jump in the lake, back in the sauna kind of thing. And, I think at the end of the day, we want to sort of facilitate the ability for folks to enjoy their property without impacting on the enjoyment of other people's properties or any safety things or whatever. So, yeah, I think bringing it forward in this manner, I mean, I don't really have an issue with it. And ultimately, it's coming to council to make a decision. Like, there's nothing, the deputy mayor or no one's having the final say. It still has to come to us to decide whether or not we think this is appropriate and timely. And yeah, so that's why we're here today for it. So, is there any other comments or anything? I would like to just make one comment, and I think it's important too, like, we're making sure that we're being consistent with provincial sort of direction and policy. And I know even at the county level, we've talked about different things, because legislation keeps changing. It's, you're trying to be consistent, but you don't want to be too specific and sort of like naming this, like, this particular bill or whatever, because then another bill comes along. So I think it is important, and I think especially when you look at things like the minimum dwelling size, like you said, that is a trend that's happening. I've seen it. I'm a big proponent of, tiny homes and different. I really believe that, municipalities in general, but just communities as a whole, we really need to rethink how we build communities and how we house people, and we need to kind of start thinking outside the box. The whole sort of, standard way we think of development, it needs to change, and we need to look at alternatives and things that are reasonable and appropriate and attainable for people to have some choice. So I love the minimum dwelling size, and it's totally appropriate that at the end of the day, it's got to get a building permit. If you can't get a building permit for it, you're not going to get it, right? So I really like that. Anyway, anything else? If not, there is a motion before us that we approve of the zoning bylaw amendment, the housekeeping bylaw, at the end of the meeting.
Don't have to do it.
Ruth Ann,
I'll make the recommendation.
okay, is there a seconder for that?
Definitely.
Seconded by Jim. All those in favor? That is approved. Thank you very much, Laura. I'm going to declare that we are out of statutory public hearing, and if you would stay, I would like to pull forward, I think you have one report, which is the watershed planning update.
Yes.
So that saves me from having to do like that portion of my county update for council, because you can update them on that.
Let me just pull that up here.
Sorry, I didn't,
Nope, that's
but I saw
okay.
that after and I was kind of, ooh, we need to.
That's okay, and I do just want to, let council know that I already forwarded Kelly a copy of an updated bylaw that has docs removed from
Right.
it, so it's all, the administrative part is taken care of. Okay, so the watershed plan equivalent. The County of Peterborough back in November of 2024 has put together a technical advisory committee involving all member municipalities as well as First Nations and the conservation authorities and any other relevant agencies to look at a watershed plan equivalent. And the reason it's an equivalent is because we don't have the actual data at present. So this is to provide kind of an overarching policy document to maintain the health of the watersheds in our county as we have them today. And in doing so, we will be able to collect data that can then go and inform further policies in the future. So I know this was brought before County Council last month. There isn't really any action that I need from council, but this is more of just an informative report.
No, I appreciate that, and this is just sort of the first step, right? Because
That's right.
as it's just like an onion, we're peeling back the layers, and there's levels upon levels in the tertiary and quaternary, and I don't even know how to say all the, as we get into those sub-levels, but it's a good first step, and it's a lot of work. It's not totally finished the process, but I mean,
No.
and there's, yeah, huge documents with it, so. But yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that update, because like I said, I don't have to do it now. But it's a good one, so stay tuned, because more will come forward. And certainly for those communities, I know it was Kevin Monaghan that was pushing this, significantly, because there's a lot going on down there, right? And they wanted to make sure that they have, the information and the details in place so that they do have good planning, right? And they're going forward in that.
That's right, and all of the watersheds work in tandem with each
Exactly.
other. So what happens up here does affect the watersheds down.
Which is something that, we brought forward when source water protection came out. I mean, and everybody was sort of included except for us. And I was like, but we are the source, right? So it's important that we look at the big picture. It's not in isolation, right? And it's not just about water quality, it's also about quantity. We know the changes that are coming and the crazy rainstorms and the droughts we get and everything else. So it's to be better informed about that resource that we have, that we all depend on is key. So.
That's right, so the data collected will definitely be able to help with emergency management, whether it is drought or floods. Just to have that data and know what we can expect in the next trend after that.
All right, thank you for that, Laura.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? If not,
Well, just a motion to approve the update,
or receive it.
or to receive the update.
Perfect, and seconder, Ruth Ann, all those in favor? That's been received. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're gonna get back on to, see if we can get up here because we have, the special guests have arrived, but we're a little bit behind schedule, folks, but we're gonna do our best to get caught up. Yeah. Yeah, who, what? I know, I'm not doing it right now, no, I'm just letting them
I thought you
know.
were.
No, just letting them know
Oh,
that
good.
we may be a little later
You're
than
just
11:45,
recognizing them.
right? So, yeah, so we saved the best for last,
I missed
just might be a little bit later than usual, so. Okay, all right, so let's go back here on the agenda. So we did that, okay, we've got deputation. Okay, so county report. So Laura did do the update there about the watershed plan, but we also had a couple of other things happen at the last county council meeting. Back at the end of last year, county council struck an affordable housing financial incentive program, basically I know called Open Door. And all about ways to support housing initiatives. And actually at the last meeting, we did approve the first application to that program, and it was from Habitat for Humanity, and it was to build 3 affordable housing units in Norwood. So it's going to be a good sort of, first test run of this program, involving some, county loans to get that with the terms to pay back. But it's something that, it's just another tool in the toolbox when it comes to looking at housing options for different communities, right? So county's doing that. They also looked at, there's expanding the organics program. There's a bit of discussion back and forth on that. And a couple of one of the recommendations was removed when it came to the countertop composting, because we're already doing it anyway at the lower tier. So, but they are looking to adding more Molochs. Not every transfer station in the county has Molochs there. I know we just have it at Anstruther, and I know our staff would love to have them at Holtane as well. So they're looking at that, as well as the backyard composting program too. They're looking to expand on that. And the big thing, well, certainly because it involved me, it was in my notice of motion, and it is in our consent agenda, which I'm going to ask to have pulled forward. But there's been, with the changeover in terms of the voter list when it comes to municipal elections, it's Elections Ontario that's doing it now. It used to be MPAC. And we have noticed that there are discrepancies in the list between the last election and this one, and specifically impacting the non-resident eligible voters, which would be our seasonal folks, our cottagers. In talking with some of my colleagues at County Council, they're seeing the same thing, certainly with the cottage communities. So there's a real big push on right now to get people to check the voters list, to get registered. You go to Elections Ontario, there's a pop-up on the township website to click on the link to do that. It's really, really important. I know Elections Ontario is aware of it and they're working on it this month, apparently. They're trying to get a big push out, but we know already the struggle we have with our seasonal residents who think that they can't vote in more than one municipal election. They think they can vote at home, but they can't vote where they cottage. If you're a property owner, you can absolutely vote where you cottage. So it's just, this is just going to compound a problem that kind of already exists. So it's just really important. It was unanimously supported at County Council. It's been circulated everywhere. Apparently, it was on CBC radio this morning, which I'm gonna have to, I know, I didn't even know. So anyway, so the word's getting out, and we just need to keep that up. I know staff, you guys have been out there, you're gonna be working like the Lions Flea Market and everything to get people, aware of this. But I can't stress it enough. At the end of the day, your vote is your voice. And if people aren't provided, the means to actually exercise that right, you know what, it's gonna be a problem. So that being said, that is my county report. Anything else?
Can't add anything to that.
Okay. Can I have a motion? Well, if there's no questions, motion to receive that? Motion by Colin, seconded by Ruth Ann, all in favor? Okay, that's been received. Colin, what's happening at the Crow?
It is a full non-report. There's been no meeting,
I love those reports.
no briefing for me. I've got nothing.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll gladly take it. All right, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting of council that was held on June 16th. Can I have a motion to adopt those minutes, please? Moved by Jim, seconded by Colin, all those in favor? Those minutes have been adopted. Consent agenda, I did want to pull, and I apologize, Kelly, I didn't send you a notification, but I did want to pull the correspondence from Peterborough County, which is the request for provincial action on the accuracy of municipal voters lists. And I would like to ask council to consider supporting that motion. Moved by Collins.
With excitement.
Okay, good. Yeah. Seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? So that has been supported. And if there's nothing else that anybody wants to pull, can I have a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda items? Moved by Jim, seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? That has been received. We did our staff report for planning, so now we're on to building. Dun, 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 dun. Good morning, welcome, Matt. And please go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of council. So I have a report before you with regards to the RFP 0226 for the North Kawartha Health Center addition at 183 Burley Street. The recommendation is that council place the proposed addition to the North Kawartha Health Center indicated in the scope of work for RFP 0226 on hold until such time as a building facilities review and building condition assessment BCA has been completed, and that the immediate capital improvements such as new flooring in the dental office, HVAC alterations, and new roofing on the existing building be completed as required. So as background, we in the strategic plan under the infrastructure, an approved action was to initiate an RFP for the North Kawartha Health Center renovations, and which also included an addition. There's a capital budget for this addition and renovations, the remaining amount of $175,000 that was budgeted, and a further $25,000 was budgeted for the replacement of the shingles at that facility. On June 8th, 2026, an RFP for the construction of the addition as well as the HVAC alterations to the existing portion of the building was advertised with a closing date of June 30th. We did receive 2 submissions. Both of those submissions came in significantly higher than what we had budgeted. So after review in the office here, it was recommended that this report be brought forward to place that addition on hold and only do the capital items for the existing building. Those amounts are listed in the report that were received as submissions. It's our opinion that the flooring, as discussed earlier with the dentist during his delegation, that's an immediate need, as well as the roofing and the HVAC alterations to balance the system in there, as there's some issues with the balancing of that system. So and that those would be taking place with the budgeted amount within our current capital budget. If you have any questions for me with regards to the report, I'm happy to answer.
Colin, start us off.
Just a quick reminder, because I can't remember the details. The dental flooring, we replaced that pretty recently. What was the reason why we were needing to replace it again?
So that was replaced by the dentist. He, I believe, did that himself. During COVID, he did his own renovations, and that was, I guess the flooring didn't last. So it wasn't the new flooring that we put through the rest of the health center. This was flooring that he had installed probably about 5 years ago, and it's starting to wear through. So the intent is we did purchase flooring for the addition, so that's in stock right now. We have that here, and we would likely use that material to then carry through into the dental office with the commercial grade flooring, similar to the rest of the office.
Anything else? Or
No.
Okay.
I see Gary's on here as well if he has some comments.
I was like, oh, I can hear something going on. I feel like I'm at the slots.
You know, you better turn that thing off.
It's all right, Jim.
We put a 1,000 square foot addition on there, and at the same time, I think we put a new roof on all of it, didn't we, in 2005? Was that 21 years, or sort of a lifetime for a shingle?
Put in my contract, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I
Um,
think he heard me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe it's 3 tab shingles on there. I think Gary, I'm going by memory here, but they are starting to peel up. A 3 tab shingle, although it's a 25-year shingle, usually has a lifespan of about 15 years.
So we got more.
So this new product that is, we've discussed previously, the Malarkey shingle, it's a rubberized.
You're full of malarkey.
It's a
I don't
rubberized
believe it.
shingle that it's supposed to have an extended lifetime
Good.
warranty on it, so.
Oh,
Is there any chance we can use some of the excess funds to meet the request for the 220 volt home style, not the commercial charger, for the doctor and dentist to be able to charge there?
That might be something we can look at.
I don't-
I haven't been involved in that.
I don't know, but the funds that we have available, was that through, like, did we receive some, like, modernization and efficiency funds? Like, I don't know that we could, it's not directly related to sort of the renovation and maintenance of the building itself. I don't know if we could take those.
So I did speak with Judy, the treasurer, about the funds, and the funding right now for this would be coming straight from our capital. All the other funding was used
Oh, good,
already,
okay.
so
Okay.
it doesn't affect,
Yeah.
that project, the funding.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But I don't know whether or not that's something, I think that has to be sort of separate from this, because I think we've seen the costs previous that when we've been looking at it, but it still needs to be considered as part of our overall sort of, I think, like, development plan when it comes to things like EV charging and looking at that infrastructure, right? So, but I think for right now, I think we gotta kind of focus on this, right? So, Jim?
I move Matt's recommendation to get what we can get done, shingles and the floor and the HVAC, and have we got a bid on those yet? Like, we got anybody who can come in and get them done?
So Gary did have at least one quote on the roof. So I don't know if he's gonna go back out for another couple of quotes to meet our procurement on that. And then, so Gary's online there as well.
Yeah, Gary, just unmute yourself there and go ahead.
Further to Matt, yes, we did receive the one quote that we actually had discussed at council during capital forecast, and we are currently, in light of the current situation, we're actually right now obtaining more quotes. We're going to update the first quote and obtain 2 more.
Okay, perfect. All right, so,
I have one more question. The doors going in are terrible. They squeak and, so on and so forth. Could we take a look at that under this, this motion or whatever you want to call it?
So I'll defer that to Gary as a building maintenance item.
Gary, can you check the squeaky doors?
Sorry, are you referring to the front entrance doors?
Yeah.
We will have them again. So a few of these things were hopefully going to be looked after in the rental, but based upon the recent news, we'll take a look at that.
Okay, thanks.
So Jim, you're gonna move the recommendation?
With the recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? That is approved. All right, thanks, Matt. Okay, and we're gonna go on. So Gary, stay right where you are and talk to us about drinking water systems at the library and here at the office.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. Is it afternoon yet? Morning.
Not yet. We're trying to get this done before it's afternoon.
I'll be quick. So before you have a recommendation in consultation with our treasurer to transfer $6,002 from general reserves for the recommended repairs and upgrades referred to in the report to the North Kawartha Library, and then $1,850 from general reserves for the municipal office. And then we'll reassess the municipal office in the fall. And if we need to do any more major repairs or replacements of equipment there, we'll look at adding that to the 2027 capital budget.
Okay, all right,
I
thanks
can
for
go
that.
through the report, or if you have any
No.
questions.
Well, I don't know, does anybody have any questions?
I was just gonna say, I just had to go through and do the small drinking water system operator course, so there's
that fun?
nothing we can do here. No, it's not fun.
Okay, all right, did you want to make the motion?
Yeah. I'll move
Okay,
it.
Colin's gonna make it, Jim will second it. All those in favor? That's approved. All right, thanks, Gary.
Thank you very much.
All right, Edward, you're up next. Talk to us about all things emergencies. I'm glad, I mean, this is important stuff that we're focusing on here. So you've got an excellent, thorough, detailed report. I know you're not gonna read it all. Give us the Reader's Digest version.
No, good morning. Yes, no, I will not read my whole report in detail from beginning to end, and I'm glad Jesse's here
popped up.
as
Perfect.
well. So the purpose of the report is for council approval for the procurement, installation, and integration of a second VHF fire repeater at Station 1 Woodview to improve emergency communications in the southern part of the township. This is part of a broader proposed communications improvement strategy for fire, and then also eventually probably integration with public works. So why this repeater is basically needed, that there's coverage limitations that exist with the current Apsley repeater. I think it's been compounded recently by equipment that Rogers has added onto the tower here in Apsley. As well, there's just ongoing changes in terms of demand on radio usage, and as well just in buildings that over time have become conversion from 3-season to 4-season. The additional larger buildings just creates more interference and congestion and harder for, especially for in-building coverage for radios that are used by the fire department on scene. So the proposed solution, again, is to install a second repeater at the Woodview using the existing tower. We've had preliminary discussions with the county. I think their views on this is very preliminary in terms of potentially a county-wide system in the future. But again, no formal request has come to council. At this time, there's no implementation schedule, and it's likely that any county-wide system in terms of for fire usage would likely be years out. So basically that we were trying to address the immediate need for fire operations purposes. As well, we have kind of looked at the potential for vehicle repeaters, which would, again, vehicle repeaters would be repeaters that are actually installed within fire apparatus itself. That would improve on-scene communications with handheld radios that are used by fire crews. That would supplement and work with improved radio coverage from our fixed tower systems, and that is something that's being looked at and considered moving forward into the 2027 capital project and forecast. But at this time, this project is specific to a new VHF repeater at the tower itself. So the recommendation is to use the $40,000 that was originally allocated for the fire self-contained breathing apparatus equipment that came in under budget, and as well just for council's note that adding a second repeater would cost approximately $2,200 per year, and that's with licensing costs with Industry, Science and Economic Development Canada that we pay for that radio spectrum. So, and the reason that we're looking at going with the current vendor that we have is that the vendor, again, knows our VHF radio system that our township is using, that's used by fire control, that is through the city of Peterborough, and as well works with our neighboring agencies as well with their fire radio systems as well. So.
Okay, all right. That's
And
awesome.
I don't know if Jesse's online there, if he wants to supplement or have any additional comments.
I was gonna go to the chief anyway. Good morning, Jesse. Did you want to add anything to Edward's report?
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council, and thank you, Edward, for taking the lead in this and your expertise. We are experiencing some difficulties in the southern part of our municipality, as the report states. And we are currently utilizing a neighbor's repeater when we're down there. But as the report stated, that is just a temporary fix, and we need to come up with a more permanent solution. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay, all right, Jim.
Can I just make a comment to Jesse? Jesse, today's a good day for you to ask for anything because I never was so happy to see a familiar face as I was on Thursday. Jesse and his gang pulled me out of a 30-foot ditch, so, out of a wrecked car and in onto it, and out of a 30-foot ditch, so. Kudos to the fire department again, Jesse.
You saved him just so he could vote in favor of this for you. Oh, no. Well, that's good. I'm glad everybody's okay. And just to speak to this, if I may, it just kind of highlights, I mean, this is necessary. Obviously, we're having issues and challenges. We've got to do this. And like I've said, the big focus, certainly for me, as the first mayor to ever declare a state of emergency in North Kawartha, is that we make sure that we are as best prepared as we can be, because emergencies are happening more often than not. But we just had that report this morning during, for planning for the development down in Woodview. Like, more folks are coming to this area, so we got to make sure that we have the proper coverage and protection and emergency services in place, so that we can respond and look after all the folks in our community. So this is timely at any point, but it just kind of really hits home for me when I was thinking about just the way it's coming forward today and with what we've been talking about. So there is a recommendation there. Anybody want to, yeah, you have a question, sorry.
Yeah, just, if we have a temporary solution and it sounds like a long-term solution is being worked on, is there no way we can extend this temporary solution, maybe contribute a little bit until we get that county-wide system? This feels like we're plugging a gap with an expensive piece of equipment.
Jesse, you want to go for that?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so the preliminary talks, I could still see us be about 2 years out. And I think the temporary solution we have it's very temporary. It's, we're not talking months. We could run into issues. And actually, we already have had issues where we start over talking each other when we have to switch to our neighboring department's repeater, which creates huge havoc in the fire service when we're trying to make benchmarks, important accountability information. So I would recommend that we don't look at that as a temporary for months down the road.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I'll follow up with that I think if there's the potential for a county-wide system, the current radio assets that we have in terms of those repeaters may be able to be redeployed or moved as part of that, so they'd be repurposed. So I see the life of these VHF repeaters, the ones that we currently have are decades old, so I think they might be physically moved, but they'd still be reused in I think in a countywide system regardless.
Getting up to speed on this, I mean, is not going to prevent our integration with a broader system in the future, is what you're saying, right?
These are DMR repeaters. We expect that would continue with same radio standard even with a countywide system.
Okay, perfect. So once again, North Kawartha, head of the pack, maybe.
Head of the pack. Move the recommendation.
Jim's gonna move it, Colin seconds it. All those in favor? That's approved.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, and
I've got 2 minutes.
well, we're gonna, I apologize, folks, we've got a couple of things to get through. We do have a closed session, but we'll move ourselves to go in to deal with that. Hopefully it won't take too long, but we're gonna go as fast as we possibly can, because we wanna focus all the attention at the end on the most important stuff. So, Judy, come on up. I know this is a huge, long report. We're gonna have a lot of debate about this, as we do every year when you bring this report forward, right?
Yes, yes. Always pick on me. Good morning, Madam Mayor, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So again, the Christmas closure, like the mayor said, kind of it's the same as every year. So we're looking at closing at noon on December 24th and reopening Monday the 4th of January, so a week there. Any non-stat days, staff will take it as vacation first, personal, and then overtime.
Okay, all right.
Well, I was gonna move the recommendation too, but it doesn't matter.
I'm gonna let Ruth Ann move it. All right, you wanna move that? Okay, who wants to second it? You can fight over that. Colin's gonna second it. All those in favor? That's approved. Thanks, Judy. Okay, on to administration. Kelly, is this you, Kelly, or is this Keely-Ann? Sorry, it's you, Kelly. It was.
Yes,
Yep.
this is just for information purposes. I thought it was timely to bring forward lame duck periods in a report, just so that council are aware of the timeliness of that.
Yep.
Council will be in a lame duck position. It could occur twice during a municipal election process.
Right.
So between August 24th, which is the day that nominations will be certified, and election day, and then between election day and November 15th.
Okay. And it's, for us, it's gotta be, it's not based on 3, it's based on 4. Okay. All right. In terms of returning members, okay?
Yes.
All right. Colin.
I was gonna move the recommendation.
Perfect, that's what I want you to do. And there's a seconder, Ruth Ann's gonna second it. All those in favor? That has been received, okay. And next up is Community Emergency Management Coordinator. And Shannon, this is you.
Thank you, Mayor Ayotte. So
It's so weird.
I know. So currently we have a CEMC position that was, that Alana filled.
Yep.
For Emergency Management Committee, and she was the coordinator and appointed. With her retirement, it is now vacant. So in discussion with staff and in discussion with the field officer, finding out what our requirements are, we're recommending that Jason Post, Deputy CAO, be appointed as the CEMC. With this background, it is felt that it is a good fit for the role. I did consult with Fire Chief Lamb and Deputy Fire Chief Lai as their appointed alternate CEMCs to see if they had interest. And they would prefer to remain as alternates. So my report speaks for itself. There will be some training that is required, but we just said we have 1 year after appointment, if council so wishes, for the training to be completed. And it is our recommendation that we budget for it in the 2027 calendar year or budget, and that we proceed with the appointment.
Okay.
I vote that we get more work.
Do you accept? Okay, all right, so Jim moves the recommendation. Oh, sorry, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna make the same thing, or as long as he's okay.
Okay, perfect. So moved by Jim, seconded by Ruth Ann, and all those in favor? That's approved. Okay, and it's you again, isn't it, Jim? Yep.
It is. So the report provided to you is just for information for council. You received a draft procurement policy for review. There was quite a few comments and asked for changes or clarification throughout the document. In our review, we have decided that we're actually enrolled in a training session that is a lot of municipalities together are seeking information through the procurement specialist at the County of Halliburton, or County of Peterborough. Sorry. And we're also 3 staff members. We have enrolled in a procurement, I think it is like a seminar with a lawyer who specializes in procurement and specifically in Buy Ontario. So we would like to conclude those training sessions, review a few more documents prior to bringing back a procurement policy for council to approve.
Sounds good to me. Anybody? Any questions, comments? Motion to receive that update. Moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Jim. All those in favor? That's been received. And then Joint Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. This is Keely-Ann.
I'll speak from here if you don't mind.
That's okay.
The staff report is in regards to the Peterborough County Joint Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. The recommendation is to adopt the final plan and to direct staff to post the appropriate plan on our website. Just as a background, the draft was brought to North Kawartha Council in June 2nd, where we endorsed the plan. There has not been any adjustments to the draft plan, and it was brought to Peterborough County on June 24th, where it was adopted as a final.
Okay, perfect. So can I have a move for that recommendation? Moved by Jim, seconded by Colin. All those in favor?
Thank you kindly, Council.
That's been adopted. Okay, perfect. Where are we now? So reports from boards and committees. Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board, there's the 2025 annual report there. If there's no comments or anything, can I have a motion to receive that report, please? Moved by Dan, seconded by Jim. All in favor? That's been received. I do want to just provide a brief announcement. Well, no, wait a minute, where are we here? No, that's at the end, forget it. I'm not going to do that there, sorry. I'll save it for later. I do need a motion that we need to go into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act. This part of the meeting is closed due to personal matters as well as a trade secret, and specifically we're talking about with the planning department. So I need a motion for us to go into close for that. Moved by Jim, seconded by Ruth Ann again. All those in favor? Okay, we're gonna go into close. You folks stay put. We're gonna leave and just have a little private discussion, then we're gonna come back and then we'll get to the good stuff. All right, so welcome back, everyone. I need a motion to come out of close and back into open, please. Moved by Jim, seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? We are back into open session. Just a brief report that direction was provided to staff on the items listed for discussion in closed session. And with that, okay, and then with that, I'm going on to, I did want to make just a brief announcement before the big special announcement, because it literally just came into my computer in the last hour. As you know, I created the Highway 28 Mayor's Coalition to advocate for greater safety and improvements on Highway 28. The MTO conducted an operational safety review, and we struggled to coordinate a meeting, but we did have one a few weeks ago with as many of the mayors in the OPP as possible. They presented their findings in their report, and I was begging them, I'm like, I need something to bring forward to the public, which I just got today is a report. So just wanted to let everybody know there will be something coming at the next meeting of council. But anyway, so I just wanted to bring that forward. But we do have a very special announcement. Oh, I have to do the bylaws right now? Okay. Okay, fine. Sorry, gotta do the bylaws. Sorry. Kelly, can you read out the bylaws, please, before we do the really fun thing?
Yes, we have a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 26, 2013. With respect to certain lands described as Part 1 of Plan 45R 17602 in the geographic area. Oh, sorry. Reading the wrong thing. Described as, yeah, that's right. Yeah, just didn't look right to me. Part 1 of Plan 45R 17602 in the geographic area of Burleigh, South Division, County of Peterborough, being roll number 153602001-63700, 65 Northeast Bay Road. And that bylaw 2026, with respect to lands described as part lots 11 and 12, concession 3 in the geographic area of Chandos in the County of Peterborough, roll number 01020008900, and a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act to amend zoning bylaw 26, 2013 with respect to certain lands described as part lot 37, concession 11 in the geographic area of Anstruther in the County of Peterborough, roll number 1536020234800, and a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act as amended to amend zoning bylaw 26, 2013 for the entirety of the Township of North Kawartha.
Perfect. Want to move those, Colin? All right, and seconded by Jim. All those in favor? Those bylaws are approved. Now, I'm not going to confirm the proceedings until we do this part. finally. So we're going to do this. This is now our presentation. Like I said, we saved it and I appreciate your patience. Thank you so much. I know we're way behind schedule, but that just makes us more hungry for the good food. Anyway, I'm very pleased today to recognize, council is thrilled, not just me, but council is thrilled to recognize Keith Warner as North Kawartha's Senior of the Year for 2026. Keith is the kind of individual whose impact is felt every day, even though he prefers to work quietly behind the scenes. According to ABC Seniors President and past Senior of the Year recipient, Pat Beck, Keith's consistent dedication and reliability make him an integral part of the success of all ABC Seniors activities and weekly luncheons. Keith can always be counted on to step in wherever support is needed. He approaches every task, no matter how big or small, with care, humility, and a genuine desire to help others. His steady presence ensures that events run smoothly, allowing seniors to come together and enjoy meaningful, well-organized activities. In addition to his contributions with ABC Seniors, Keith is also a valued and active member of the APSI Lions Club, further demonstrating his commitment to community service. Through his involvement, he continues to give back and make a positive difference in the lives of others beyond the seniors programs. What truly sets Keith apart is his selflessness. He does not seek recognition or attention, yet his contributions are essential to the sense of community and belonging that both organizations provide. His kindness, commitment, and quiet leadership embody the very spirit of what it means to be Senior of the Year. For his unwavering support, behind-the-scenes dedication, and positive impact on the community, Keith demonstrates my firmly held belief that the greatest asset of any community is its people. Congratulations, Keith, on this well-deserved recognition. Come on up. I got a little something for you. Do you want to take a picture? Leanne, I see she's popping up. Congratulations. Well deserved. Come on right here. We'll get a, you want to take that? You want to hold that there? And we'll do a little picture. Wonderful, thank you. These are my words, I'm gonna give them to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you can keep that, but if you want to say a few words, this is your time. Perfect.
I'm not much of a public speaker, but I couldn't believe what was on the computer. The other day, I had to bring my wife in, I said, read this. I can't believe this. Is it true? And she said, well, it's gotta be. I enjoy the community, and that's why I do little bits that I do, because I love the little community. It's a great place, and I just have to say thanks to everyone that's involved in putting this together and recognizing somebody every year makes it even a better community. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Well done. Okay, and with that, I would like a motion to confirm the proceedings of today's meeting, please. Moved by Colin, seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? Motion to adjourn. Moved by Colin, seconded by Jim, thirded by Ruth Ann, fourth by me. Yay! All right, let's